Y'all, welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who aren't qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And we are continuing our series of faction focuses. John and I are running down every faction in the game and doing a, roughly 10 to 15 minute focus, breaking down the gist and the general bits of every army. We're early on, so we seem rather cogent, but watch some of the later episodes, that's gonna change.
Yeah, we'll definitely be just batshit.
We're trying to hold it together. Much like today's subject. Y'all, I'm gonna tell you right off the rip. Today we're covering Blood Angels, and I love the Blood Angels. I play the Blood Angels. I stand the Blood Angels. In terms of, the Space Marine chapters, there's a lot of cool ones. John really likes his own sort of angry melee dudes in the world.
Everyone has to love a certain type of angry melee dude.
Yeah. But for me, it's the Blood Angels. And we like to start sort of the faction focus off with the flavor of the faction. Because let's be honest, for John and I, the lore of a faction matters just as much as almost the mechanics when we're going to go play something.
Rules change, but flavors forever.
It is. And for Blood Angels, it's kind of on the tin. The Blood Angels are, like every Space Marine, taken as young boys around the age of puberty, and then through genetic modification and sort of pseudo-magical enhancements, they are grown into these larger-than-human super monstrosities made to murder and kill. And this is always a tough process, but for the Blood Angels in particular, there's a number of problems. And that's that their gene seed is different. They are mutated. They are burdened with what we call the red thirst, which gives them an overwhelming lust for blood, and it rises when combat starts. And
You're talking about space vampires?
Yeah, I mean space vampires, John. There's no way to mince words. They are space vampires in power armor.
Space Draculas?
They're space Draculars. I'm telling you. I swear. Space Draculars. But the interesting thing is that their story really hinges on the idea of a sought nobility versus the frenzy and animalistic nature that they are trying to overcome. And if you read any of the novels or look at some of the character sheets even, you will see this battle play out on the battlefield and in the rules. And there is a secondary flaw, which we'll get to in just a little bit, John, in addition to the red thirst. But I think that kind of brings it home, because at the core of the day, they are still Space Marines, which is why, in their mechanical rules, they still get the same faction rule as other Space Marines.
Right, so that's Oath of Moment. We talked about it in a previous video. You can go back and watch it. But Oath of Moment for Blood Angels means the same thing mechanically. It works the exact same way as it does for every Space Marine chapter. But what you're going to use it here for is very simple. You're going to use it to trade up with a unit, or you're going to use it for the thing you're about to charge with all of your guys.
Yes.
Right? Like you're a melee army, you're probably coming through Deep Strike, or you're going to have ran up through a transport. You're going to drop that on the thing that you want to charge and kill this turn.
Yes.
That is what you're going to use it for. Whether that's to trade up, or whether it's because you're going to send 4 squads into it. That's the thing that you're going to use it for.
Yes.
And what's going to help you get there is the detachment rule.
Yes, the red thirst. I just talked about it. It's the space vampire thing, John.
It's the space vampires.
And much like Oath of Moment, it's really simple. It's obscenely simple. So when a Blood Angels unit from your army makes a charge move and gets into melee and starts to fight, they are going to get a +1 to their strength characteristic and a +1 to their tax characteristic for the whole unit for that fight.
It's very good.
It is deceptively good. It doesn't sound like much if you're new to the game and you haven't gone through sort of back and forth trades in melee especially, but getting a boost to help overwhelm your opponent right off the bat for a melee army is very, very useful. And it is the core of what lets Blood Angels really rip and tear when the time comes.
It also allows non-melee units to become melee units. Like regular intercessors, we talked about it in the previous video, now become way more powerful on the charge.
Yeah, shockingly powerful on the charge. I've played Blood Angels for a while, and in previous editions with this rule, I have had basic foot troops kill elite units, all because of this buff that no one sees coming. And it adds for a weird puzzle that your opponent has to find a way around the whole game long. And while we don't want to go through every single one of the datasheets to cover a faction, because let's be honest, I don't know if we're smart enough to really break it all down nicely, and it would be a little long in the tooth. That's a joke, John.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to laugh.
I got that.
It would be a little long to listen to. We want to pick two that we think are representative of the faction, that if you look at it, you will kind of get the gist of what we're talking about on the tabletop. So John, who do you pick?
So, we're talking about space vampires, right?
Yes, we are.
So we pick the most space vampire of the space vampire faction.
Oh?
And some might say, that's the commander, right? He's the big leader. No.
No.
It is Chief Librarian Mephiston, who is the big blood wizard space vampire. All right, Space Marine. Like he's
He looks like Dracula. Like, let's not mince words.
Yes,
Look
he
at
looks
that
like
model.
Dracula.
He looks like Dracula.
Exactula. He looks like Dracula. Exactula. But yeah, like he's got great ranged options, right? And
Yep.
you've got 4 separate range options you can use for, so it can adapt to the situation. Granted, they're all short range, but your Blood Angels, you're gonna be in there.
He's never going to be at long range. It's fine.
Exactly. He's got a great melee profile, right?
Mhm.
He has Feel No Pain on a 5-up, so you get to help ignore some of your damage. He can lead a unit, right? And that unit he leads, he gives fights first, he gives them Feel No Pain against psychic attacks, and he allows things that they get into combat with to have a debuff. So he makes them defensive, which is a thing Blood Angels doesn't have a lot of.
It's true.
Defensive. They have huge on the offense. So you take this guy and you put him in a unit of 10 assault intercessors from the core Space Marines book.
Oh, buddy.
And turns them into a lawnmower.
A horrifying powerhouse unit.
Exactly. Like you make a huge big block unit that goes in there and just tears it all up.
Yeah. I mean, you open, you put them in a Land Raider, you put them up, open the door, say, let her rip, and out they come. Oh, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Mephiston. He's also a big character in the lore, so big ups on Mephiston. Yeah. It's a shame though he can't go in my pick, because I love this unit. I will admit, I do think it's good mechanically, y'all. I do, but I love it for the fluff. It is the tragic bit that makes me adore the Blood Angels the most. And it is their second flaw, in addition to the Red Thirst, because being Space Draculars just ain't enough. They have something called the Black Rage. And this is a throwback to old lore, where their Primarch died horrifically. Just terribly, terribly violently. And this Primarch was very close with all of his sons. And when he passed in a horrific way, in this heroic moment of sacrifice, the psychic backlash hits his sons for generations. And in addition to fighting off wanting to eat people, there's this terrible rage that suffuses them, that if they do not keep in check, they will fall to it. And when they do, their personality is gone. All of the nobility is shed, and they're mindless, horrific killers. And there's no coming back. There's no hope for them. Their brothers adorn them in the honors and memories of their life because they can't remember themselves. And then they are sent in the battle to die in one glorious final charge. And the Death Company Marines with jump packs, I think, really encapsulates this fluff. One, they have jetpacks on, so they move obscenely quickly. They have a bajillion attacks on the charge. They also get a Black Rage ability, which is a debuff that you can get around, where they're so mindless, they forget how to do the mission objective. So you have to bring a chaplain, who is a Space Marine, sort of like a priest, who can understand their mind.
They need a babysitter. It's fine.
They do. It is their babysitter. Like, the chaplain understands what they're hallucinating and will warp their hallucinations for them. So, you know, if they're about to kill an allied human, the chaplain might be like, oh, brother, surely you see that monster's over there, not that poor Imperial citizen. And then the hallucination will warp, and all of a sudden the person they were about to kill looks helpless, and they're like, ah, yeah, of course, yeah, there, I'm going over there. And, you know, they heard them where they need to be. So if you bring a chaplain, all the debuff goes away. But you do get a feel no pain off of it, just because you are immune to pain and you don't notice it. And they get Berserk Fury, where they're just so angry that they get to reroll all their charges. All the time, for free. Because that's what they do. They really want to get in and rip and tear. And I can tell you, they do. They're real good at it. And I think that sort of summarizes Blood Angels, but like, John and I, we like to be a little more conversational, because, like, let's be honest, if you've watched some of the longer tactics videos, like, a little bit of nuance gets lost in some of them. So, like, John, what's your tip for Blood Angels? Like, if you're going to give someone one actionable piece of advice, what would it be? Because I know mine.
Don't run straight forward, right? Like, you want to kind of bait in what you want your opponent to do. Don't just take a bunch of dudes, run them straight forward, pass the terrain directly into them. Use the terrain, bounce between them, and use things to your advantage. Like, bring vehicles or ranged threats that let you draw them in, because they can't. Those ranged threats hurt them enough that they need to move forward.
Yeah, if you don't, it goes bad quickly, real quickly. Mine sort of plays off of that, but I would say be mindful of your pressure. When you're playing a melee army like this, it's very tempting to just be like, all right, let's put in all of my threats, and let's just roll charges across the board, and if I make all my charges, I win. And if I don't, uh-oh. And I would caution you that this army requires a little bit of finesse in terms of picking what charges where and what goes into Blender. So instead of just going whole hog all at once, maybe ease off a few units in case your charges go poorly. Then you have some stuff left to come in the following turns and try to clean up shop. And, you know, sometimes you do get to the point where it's just, all right, everything goes in, it is what it is, 50-50, let's go. Look, if you're pulling scratch-off tickets, you're doing scratch-off tickets. But, like, you could try to avoid having to do so. And I think if you do, you're probably going to do pretty well with Blood Angels. They're fairly forgiving. They're not super complicated. I think it makes them a compelling beginner faction. And I hope y'all like them. But for us, I mean, if maybe space vampires aren't your thing, we're going to be doing the other factions. There's some space werewolves, you know, maybe that's your thing. If you like three wolf moon shirts.
Space Knights.
Yes, if you're really into like Arthurian tales, there's some of those. And then, I mean, by God, there's other factions of the world, not Space Marines, John. You wouldn't know it.
Yeah,
but they exist.
There could be evil Space Marines, spiky Space Marines even.
Oh no, that'd be a terrible world, John. We don't speak of them. No.
Okay. We will later.
We will. And we'll be covering all of those. So if this one isn't for you, maybe check on back or share it with someone who you think it might be for. We appreciate you. That's been all of our opinions. Bonafide, Kentucky Fried. We'll see you all in the next one.